The 76ers' start to the season has been a movie, a disaster movie to be more specific. A team that was expected to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference is looking in the mirror at a 2-12 record, leaving them as one of two teams to have not yet won 3 games. There is a lot to be alarmed about, most importantly, the fallout of the league team meeting that occurred following their loss to the Heat on Monday. To recap, 38-year-old Kyle Lowry called for a team meeting after the 17-point loss to the Miami Heat, who were on the second night of a back-to-back. In the meeting, according to reports which included leaks from people in the locker room where it happened, Tyrese Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time, quote, for everything. This quote specifically was the most alarming, as it confirms suspicions about Joel Embiid not holding himself accountable. Also alarming is the team not establishing a culture of accountability, and instead establishing a culture where it takes a horrific start, team meeting, and vocalization from a player who has spent half the time in the league as Embiid to get him to see that his habits as the on-court leader of the team have to be better. Embiid spoke on this after the game, saying, quote, "There was nothing malicious being said. I like when people are telling me when I'm not doing good and when I need to be better. That part of it, tardiness, probably happened once or twice when I wasn't playing, so I need to be better. I need to be perfect, I need to be on point, which I'm going to do." Next, players reportedly expressed their desire to be coached harder, and in turn, the coaches said they want the players to practice harder. Not much insight to be taken from this, as in a perfect world, this would have been happening already, but better late than never, I guess. The other major leak from the meeting was that Embiid, in addition to taking Maxey's comments in stride and accepting them, expressed confusion with the game plan and, quote, what the 76ers are attempting to execute on the court. This is interesting because, in theory, it should be the same scheme as last season, but in practice, with Maxey, Lowry, Kelly Oubre Jr., and KJ Martin being the only holdover teammates from last season, it does make sense why there has been a clear lack of continuity. Now, none of the context of the meeting is as bad as the fact that it was leaked in the first place. In the Podcast P episode that dropped on Thursday, Paul George and Reggie Jackson were asked what happened and who was in the room.
Question, because I don't know how the hell Shams got that story or how that even leaked, especially it being like kind of word for word, or not necessarily word for word, but quoted. That was the crazy part about it.
Is it just the players? Who's in that room? Is there more people outside of the team, as in the players, sitting in that locker room?
Nah, I think we all know his name.
I'll say the people that was in that room is the people that's supposed to be in that room. And it's the people that go out and we're in the trenches with on a nightly basis. That's who was in that room.
The fact that the people in the meeting were only people supposed to be there likely means it had to come from a player or coach, as multiple media members expressed how they were locked out of the locker room during this time. See, this is where things are extremely alarming, because if this was a deliberate leak from a player or coach, it speaks to a locker room that is not only lacking accountability, but lacking camaraderie. I do want to halt that train of thought because, like ex-Sixer Lou Williams said, leaks do not necessarily have to be intentional.
Look at everybody. When you have these meetings, when you have these closed-door meetings, usually it's the coaching staff and it's the players, and everybody is kind of getting things off of their chest. And, whether it's somebody that gets on the phone and gossips with their homeboys or their wife or something, and those people are considered sources, and they have the relationships with the Shams of the world and they leak information. That's how these things get out. Listen, it's like anywhere else. If you hear some juicy gossip, you want to tell somebody what you heard. You want to let somebody in on an experience, and sometimes that creates leaks within your organization and your locker room when you're having these conversations.
Embiid would express his thoughts on the leak and is reportedly determined to figure out who it was. I have heard some theories about who it could be, so sound off in the comments below with your best guesses. Lou Will would also say the relationship between Embiid and Maxey is still strong in the wake of the frenzy.
Sixers, and by all accounts, this was kind of blown out of proportion. The idea of Tyrese calling Joel out, and how it's been portrayed in the media as, one of these type of blow up things. From my understanding, they just had a conversation on accountability, just keeping everybody in check. And sometimes you got to have that as a team, just making sure we all on the same page. Hey, bro, we understand you're not going to play in these games, but, team meetings and all of that, it's important for you to be there. It's important for you to be there on time. So from my understanding, that was the nature of the conversation. That was the context of a conversation. It wasn't as much of Tyrese Maxey challenging Joel Embiid as it's been stated. It wasn't a conversation about accountability. By all accounts, those guys are doing just fine. They were sitting next to each other when we were on the phone, laughing and giggling and having a good time and trying to get this team back on the same page. And so that, from what I understand, that was the context of the conversation, not as much of the negative stuff that's trying to come out at this point.
This news, in addition to Maxey's return from his hamstring injury, gave the impression that Wednesday's matchup against the Grizzlies would be a return to something resembling normal on the court. It would be far from it. Maxey would look rusty in his return, only scoring 8 points and going 0 of 6 from 3. He did have a 20-minute restriction. Paul George looked very shaky, putting up only 2 points in the first half. Just a minute into the second half, George would re-hyperextend his left knee when going for a rebound. He would miss the rest of the game, get an MRI Thursday morning, and was ruled out for the next 2 games with a bone bruise, according to Shams. There are multiple possessions where there is little to no movement and one player just goes one-on-one, which goes against Nurse's coaching philosophy. Eric Gordon has been a waste of a roster spot so far this season, and his 5 minutes against the Grizzlies did not do much to change that. He was shooting career low percentages from the field and from deep, and has been a turnstile on defense. Andre Drummond nabbed a few steals and played decent in the first half, but had a very poor stretch in the fourth quarter, which helped the Grizzlies lead grow to 19. He has looked a step slow since opening night. The fact Coach Nurse had to play 12 guys shows that he is not confident with any given rotation and is still throwing darts at the board to see what sticks. With all this being said, the Sixers did show some fight, going on a 19-4 run late in the fourth quarter to cut the Grizzlies' lead down to 4 before Embiid passed the ball out of bounds with just 23 seconds remaining. Although the turnover was costly, Embiid was far from the reason they lost this game. He responded to Maxey's motivation by putting up 35 points and 11 rebounds in 35 minutes. Most encouraging was the sight of his triple threat position and his shooting from the mid-range, which has been his bread and butter since his MVP season. He also attempted a jump stop and Euro step, both signs that he is beginning to trust his left knee more and more. He did briefly go to the locker room and had a moment where his right leg got banged up, but he would remain in the game. After not getting fouled for a whole game for just the second time in his career against the Heat, Embiid would return to form on Wednesday, earning a hefty 14 free throw attempts and hitting every single one. Jared McCain put up 20 points for the 6th straight game in what has been a breakthrough during this rough stretch for the Sixers. He has also been growing as a playmaker and shown good court vision, averaging 4.5 assists per game during the 6-game streak. McCain's taken advantage of every opportunity he has been given with the Sixers and is being rewarded with a ratings boost in NBA 2K25 of +10, which is one of the biggest mid-game rating boosts in the game's history. He goes from a 73 to an 83 overall. McCain is well on his way to receiving Rookie of the Month honors for October and November. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it a lot, and since you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. I will be sure to continue to update you about everything you need to know as a fan of this team. I will talk to you later. Peace.